Jodi Pritchard, welcome to Built Not Born.
Thank you.
Jodi, it is such an honor to have you on. For our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, who are you and what do you do?
Just a simple person. I grew up in good old West Virginia. I always wanted to do emergency medicine. My family has a long-standing history, all the way back to World War I, for the military. And I knew I always wanted to serve. To be honest, we didn't grow up with much. Grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot, but we had family. And we always had a hot meal on the stove and all that. But in order to go to school, to go to college, the military was where I needed to go. So I made a decision to join, and it has taken care of me very well. I've been in the guard now for 26 years, and it has led me places that I am grateful for. Some friends that I adore and still to this day are the closest to me that I have ever been. It's led me to my full-fledged career as I'm a flight nurse on a medevac helicopter. Worked doing that for 20 years, and now I'm a nurse practitioner, have my own business, and an educator now for an aeromedical company.
Wow. Jodi, what I would like to do is get into my introduction to your career, which came from this book, only the number one New York Times bestseller from like the author of the decade, James Patterson, Walk in My Combat Boots, True Stories from America's Bravest Warriors. It details 45 unbelievable stories of patriots and just true everyday warriors serving our country to keep us safe. You being one of the epic profiles in this book. But before we do that, you come from a long line of a service in your family. How did that influence your decision to join the Air Force?
That's what weighed the heaviest. In addition, of course, to figuring out, oh man, hey, I get to go to school. And it was just kind of a perk of it. But, with growing up, how we grew up, again, very tight knit family. We grew like on a farm, backwoods in good old West Virginia. Family is what we had. And
Mhm.
you have role models. And those role models started when I was young. And even my great grandfather, all the way down to my grandfather, to my dad, they served in the military. And mainly my dad was the biggest influence. He was active duty Air Force. He did not retire, but he did his time. And that camaraderie, that team, that cohesion, that is what sparked me to want to do something bigger than myself.
Mhm.
And that's what my father helped me. Like he led me in the right direction. But I wanted that cohesion. I wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to be a part of a team. I grew up playing ball. I grew up playing all kinds of sports. And I'm telling you, the biggest team there is the United States military. And that's what led me in that direction.
Your family has such a storied history of serving our country. Our great grandfather served in World War One, grandfather World War II. Your
Mhm.
father volunteered for Nam, and
Mhm.
you joined the Air Force.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's 4 generations. Congrats. That's wow. First off, thank you. Let's start off the way they start off in the book. 2003, you're part of Operation Enduring Freedom in the medevac. Can you talk about that first mission they discuss in that book?
Sure. So we're caught out and we're supposed to go on and do a mission where it was actually that should have been a stateside mission, if I'm not mistaken, from Germany
Mhm.
to Walter Reed, which is in Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. I'm trying to make sure I keep the flight straight, but I'm pretty sure that's the one that we're talking about.
Yep,
So
that's it.
so my buddy, Gino Caracciolo, I'll never forget him, man. He was the nurse. I was a medic then. I was a flight medic. I ended up getting my commission later on down the road in the military because I obtained my degree. So when I refer to that, yes, I was prior enlisted before I got they consider it losing your spine,
Mhm.
becoming an officer. But anyway, so anyway, I was just somebody than a staff sergeant there. I'm not for sure, but so we got called out to do a mission, and we got pulled in, and they said, "Hey, your crew was one of the most highly qualified crews to do this mission to run from Germany, Ramstein, Germany, to the states." And I'm like, "Okay, so we're not going back to. Normally, we're going to Baghdad." I'm like, "What's the big deal with this?" Like, okay, whatever. So they pull us in, they're like, "Look, we're bringing back some people back to die back home, unfortunately, and they're very sick. We're with what's called a CCAT crew. It's a critical care air transport crew. You are gonna be the air evacuation crew." So we have a crew of 5, that included myself, and then a CCAT crew, which is a critical care doc, a critical care nurse, and an RT. that's going to be part of this one gigantic crew. So we get that, we get pulled in, we to kind of tell this it was very severe. The patients were very sick. I'm talking Ventrix, like actual bolts in their brain to relieve pressure. Just it was horrific. And I'm like, okay, that's what we do. Not a big deal. We got this. So we talk amongst ourselves. We go out to the plane, and I go out there, and I think anything of it. We open up the ramp like normal. We have to configure the plane like normal every day. And then we get on, and I never forget it. Stuck my head through the side door, and I went, What is that?" And I looked and I stopped. And Gino said, he's like, "Oh my God." And I was like, you kind of freeze, you think you're big and bad, and you're like, and I look and it's caskets. It's caskets draped in the American flag. And I'm like, uh, woof, this is wrong. This is the wrong plane. Right. This is the wrong plane. So I'm like, I check our paperwork and I walk out around. And I'm sure the security forces thought I was a complete idiot, but I'm walking around looking at the tail number and I'm looking at our paperwork and I'm like, no, this is the right plane. And I'm like, how can we fly caskets and patients? And I'm like, "Oh my god," and Gina's like, "Look, we gotta do what we gotta do. This is our plane." I'm like, "Okay." So you take that, everything that you feel inside, and you shove it down, and you start configuring planes with caskets on board, and that's what you do. So we got the back of the plane configured. It was very minimal patients, very minimal. And we bring the patients on board and they're sick as snot. And, of course, the additional CCAT crew, the critical care air transport crew comes on and they're like, what is that? I'm like, well, we said the same thing. They're like, this is the wrong plane. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the right plane. And then what's called the front end crew, pilots, load masters, all of them, they come on board and they're like, I said, is this right? And they're like, yeah, this is all we have to get them back home. And I'm like, right. We have to get these guys back home. And I know we got to get these guys back home, but we're going to have other people flying with us, not only just patients. Now, we have our caskets, but we also have passengers.
Mhm,
And they're like, okay, let's go. I mean, it's back in that time. We got to do what we got to do.
mhm,
So, we took off and, we're back there and the patients were, my goodness, bad, bad. And I'm not trying to be over exaggerate. These were the sickest of the sick. They really truly were. And during that time, I kept noticing this lady. I'll never forget this. It was this lady. She was staring at this casket, like right in front of it. She was dressed in civilian clothes. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So we do shifts. So I had taken a break. And of course, we go and I went to where the caskets were to kind of sit down and relax a little bit. And, I kept watching this woman and, again, in civilian clothes, she was very distraught. I mean, crying, not hysterically, but just very, sad. And I'm like, oh my God. So I said, "Ma'am, hey, how about if we put you up front? Would you like to go in the cockpit? We can take you up there, get you away from this atmosphere. I do apologize. It's just," she's like, "No, no, no, I'm okay where I'm at." And I'm like, "Ma'am, are you sure? Definitely can get you out of here." She said, "No, that's my husband." And
wow,
she pointed to the casket, and I'm like, "What?" And I don't know if you remember the big UN bombing back
mhm,
then.
sure,
Well, unfortunately, he didn't make it, and I had no idea, and I just was like, "Oh my goodness." So I said, "Okay, is there anything I can get you? Anything at all?" And I was just explaining to her how long the flight would be, asking her questions, trying my best to take her mind off of it. But, yeah, so that was like, oh my goodness. We land, and of course, our patients come off first, and we go to the hospital. All of our patients go on what's called an AMBU bus. Okay. So it's a big bus that we put them on, and we loaded them all in there. They drive us to the hospital, and we get to the hospital, we park, we open up the door, and I just happened to jump out first. I just happened to be, and I was in my tan flight suit, I jump out. And there was a mom and a small child standing there before I was grabbing equipment to get out of the way, set her here to get the patient out because they were bringing the stretchers out to get the patients. And so the little girl came over and she's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh, hey, be careful, honey, because we're moving stuff." And she tugged me. And I looked down, I said, "Hey," I said, "Hey, how are you?" She's like, it's early in the morning too. I'm like, "What is going on?" But whatever. I don't know. I'm delirious at this point. But I'm like, she's awful late for her to be out early. She comes on my flight suit. She's like, "Hey, did you bring my daddy home?" And I looked over at Gino, and Gino looked at me, and I'm like, and I looked up at the woman, which was obviously the wife of one of the patients and a child of one of the patients that are in there. And I'm like, I don't know what to say because I don't know these people. And I know, like, why are you standing here at 3 a.m. in the morning? Right. So I'm like, um, yeah, I think so. And yeah. Okay. How's he doing? I said, Let's get him in here. We'll get him situated and then we'll let you guys back. And then all the medical, like, cause I'm talking to a child. So I'm trying to, and of course, mom's watching. And I'm like, we'll get everything situated. And I looked up at Gino, and Gino looked at me, and what do you do? Like, what do you say? So, we wheeled them in and, of course, they followed and they did their thing. We came back out, but that was probably one of the most memorable, uh, situations with that deployment. Very much so.
At the start in the book, it mentions your commander at the start of this mission before you took off. He said basically you have one thing, you need to keep them alive until you
Mhm.
get to Walter Reed. That was the
Sure.
whole goal.
That
They were so injured,
Yep,
and your job was to get them from Germany to Walter Reed alive. That's
yep,
basically
yep,
your mission. Wow.
yep, and as you said those words, like, goosebumps just stand all the way over my body because that's exactly what they said. They're like, "You need to keep them alive." They just keep them alive. The commander said, "Keep them alive. That is your sole purpose, to keep them alive so the family can say goodbye." And I'm like, "Okay, let's roll." So that's what we did. I just didn't know the part about half of that being a morgue and
Yeah.
half of it being an ICU.
Already that mission, without the incredibly moving caskets being there, like that's the mission you described there is just like life changing itself. Then you go in and unexpectedly you have fallen service people there. And oh my gosh, that's something that you just don't forget. That's wild. I appreciate that story. Another story in the book I thought was, it just really grabbed me. 2003, Operation Enduring Freedom again. You fly into Baghdad, go dark, shooting at the plane. The motors couldn't shut off because not only were they shooting at you on the way down, the airport may have been getting mortared as you landed, like crazy.
Yes, it was crazy. Well, this is gonna tell my age, but they've retired this plane so far. It was a 141, it's what we were on. It was, oh my god. So our primary station is Ramstein, Germany. That's where we're stationed. But we go into Baghdad, like we go into Kirkuk, like we go in and pick up patients and then we come home. We bring them back to Germany. Like that's our job. So we go in and go back. And then obviously what I just told you about was the flights that we also take from Germany to Walter Reed. So we do that thing. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's kind of you gotta like chalk everything up to comic because if you can't laugh at yourself, I'm pretty sure like we all would be bought up in a knot, and God knows where our mind would be. So we get this flight, and we're gonna go into Baghdad, and we gotta pick up patients, and that's what it was. And so you're flying it, everything's great, and then all of a sudden we go dark. Like the load master's like, "Hey." Because you have to go in and do what's called a soft landings. It's very typical. It's nothing, like you just do some big circles and you come down and then you land. And that we have to do that on all those. So obviously they miss, but they talk about it being a big deal until it happens to be a big deal and you end up taking fire. So they go dark, and I'm like, I am. Listen, this is my first flight into any type of enemy territory. I am what 23 years old. First of all, what in the hell did I do? It was all good. We're with all the crew. But so our loadmaster say we're going dark, you're not gonna be able to see nothing, we're going black. And so we start putting all of our gear on. And I'm like, okay. So we put all of our gear on. And then the loadmaster, he kind of looks at me. He's like, and loadmaster, they take care of the back of the plane. There's two of them. They look out the windows to make sure if we're incoming. And he's like, hey, you need to take that vest off. And I'm like, why don't you take the vest off? He's like, because they're not gonna shoot at you, they're gonna shoot up at you. And I'm like, "Hey." They're like, "You have to set on it because the bullets come up." And, I'm like, oh my god." So we take our vest off and we have to set on them and strap in because literally the bullets come up.
Wow.
Well, sure enough, we did take fire. Never got like a direct hit, but we took fire and we popped what's called flares, right? So the big flares come popping out. And we were doing our assault landings. We're blacked out. And yeah, you could see our tracer rounds. You could see them. And then you could feel and hear the popping of flares. And then we circled and we made it safely, we made it safely and we got down on the ground. But I'm telling you, like, I was scared to death. And I thought, I got to set on my I got to set on my freaking vest. And they're like, but it makes total sense. And we all laughed because I mean, who would have known?
Yeah.
Who would have known? So, yeah, welcome to Baghdad.
Wow. Seeing patients that sick, seeing service members, like in your own story, like flying with them across the sea, being shot at, having to sit on your bulletproof vest at such a young age. How's that shape your perspective or mindset? What's that do to someone who's 22 years old? I don't know how I'd process that at 50, let alone at 22, right? So, like, how does that affect someone at such a young age?
I think it makes us resilient. Where I grew up, I had such a family cohesion, and we have a lot of things that we're taking care of. Like, always had food on the table. We always had these things, and so we always had these items that were given, maybe, or we had at bay. We were able to use, and we were able to be around, and then it's all taken away. But at that moment in time, was I scared? Yes. Has it changed me as a person? Yes. But I knew the decisions that I made and I wanted to be there because at the end of the day, as I said before, I wanted to be part of something bigger than me. And if it took these things happening for me to be a part of that team, that I was giving back. And I knew that I was going to be put in harm's way. I was okay with that. And I had come to terms with that. I had already written a letter that we kept. All of our team had written a letter that we kept to go back to our families if things happen. Now, that typically doesn't happen to flight crews. It typically doesn't happen to medical personnel, but it could.
Mm.
And I think it has made me who I am today. It's made me look at life differently, look at situations differently. Just recently with Hurricane Milton that came
Mhm.
through, I have family, Jodi, you need to get out. You need to get out. You need to get out. I'm like, hold up, take a deep breath. I have things to prepare at my home. I do need to leave and I will evacuate, but there's a step process that I have to take in order to get there. I think that that mindset was instilled in me at the age of 23 getting shot at in Baghdad, and I'll put money on that.
Mm.
It's made me so goal driven. It's made me think of processes up to this point. I take care of people in helicopters for a living. I'm the best part of your worst day, but I can only do that with a clear head. And with having a clear head I'm telling you, it started on that deployment in those situations. It's molded me to become who I am, to become resilient.
Wow, you said you are the best part of their worst day.
Yeah.
That's a I never heard something put that way. That's phenomenal. That's wild. Thank you for sharing that. Touching all back on the story of when you're transporting the really sick patients, there was a patient that was really beat up, and all they kept asking is, "When can I get back in the flight?
Oh,
When
yeah.
can I get back?" And they were nowhere near getting back in the flight, and that's all they wanted to do is turn around and rejoin their unit. That is such that mindset. Like, when you hear something like that, what's that make you think? What's that make you feel? Where's that mindset come from?
So that makes me feel proud, first of all. And that mindset is what is instilled in you day one of basic training, in my opinion, when you start to be broken down and formed back up as a cohesive team. Because that I know that just wasn't one patient. That was multiple patients that I had. And the one particular, and I didn't go as deep into the story because Mr. Patterson and Mr. Eversmann, we went a little deeper on another one. But with this particular story, it was this Turk cook. It was coming out of Iraq, I'm not for sure where, but it was a gentleman who it was a C-17, he was on the top tier, and he had got shot in the chest. He gets shot in the chest. He was still able to talk. He had a chest tube in. He was awake. He wasn't as critical, and by the way, he did very great, he made it home. He was bad, but not terrible. He was gonna be okay. Then, it was him I was talking to. And he held this, you ever seen the film casings whenever you used to have a camera and you had to put
Oh,
film?
absolutely. I've used tons of them. Absolutely.
Well, I went up there and I'm like, I talked to he's on the top tier and I'm climbing up, and I was like, talk to him. I said, "Hey, sir, I'm just checking in, and how you doing?" He's like, "I've got it." He goes, "Can I get? I need to get out of here." And I'm like, "Oh, look, I'm with you. I don't. We got look, but hey, we're going back to Germany. Let's get you situated." He's like, "No, I want to go back. Like, I need to get off this plane and go back." I'm like, "Look, you may go have a wrestling match. You cannot go back right now, but you will get back there." I'll never get this. And he sat there and he says, "God," he's like, "I know." I said, "J I get it. You have got shot in the chest. Chill." So he picks up this he said, or how do you say this? Hold on. I wanna make sure I say this right. He picks up the film thing, black. It was a black film. He rattles it and it
Mhm.
shook. Like, "What the hell is this?" Now you gotta remember, we take patients that still got grenades on them, guns and all this, and we're a fly. I'm like, "Oh God, did we not what did we forget to 'cause normally what's called anti-hijacking, it's we just tell, "Hey, we need all your stuff." Obviously, this dude came from a hospital, so he's not gonna have those items on there, but your brain starts thinking, all
Mhm.
right? So anyway, it was a film thing. I'm like, "What the hell is he got?" So rattles it. He's like, he took the cap off. He said, "Do you see this?" And I'm like, "It was a bullet." I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "That's the bullet that was in my chest." And I'm like, "All right, super cool." He goes, "See that guy over there?" And it was his buddy. And he points to his buddy. He says, "Come here." And his buddy looks, and I mean, it's a C-17. It's a big plane. And his buddy comes over, kind of hobbles over a little bit. He got shot in the leg. He was cool though. Like he had crutches. He was good. And he pulled up his case. He's like, "Hey," I'm trying not to say names because I remember the name. Trying to say name. He said, "Hey, show him your container." And they pulled it up. And I said, "Wait, is that your bullet too?" He said, so the gentleman that was limping, he's like, "No, that's not a bullet." He opens it up. It's a casing. It's a shell casing of a bullet. So it's a casing, not the bullet, the casing. I said, "Well, what is it?" And he says, I don't want to say a bad word. So he said, "This come from the bullet that shot my best friend." And I shot I want to make sure I say it right because this is the casing of the bullet that shot my friend. And I shot that MFer right in the head. So that was the casing that he shot the enemy that shot his buddy.
Whoa.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I was like, "Whoa." So
That's
yeah, we talked
that's
about
full
that.
circle right there. Oh my
For
god.
sure. For sure. And that same guy that had the casing when we landed with the casing, he had a stretcher. He was using his crutches. He had what's called a cot or a stretcher that he could lay down on and we could transport him on and off the plane. He got shot in the leg. So I told him, I said, "Hey, we're about to land. Let's get you on the plane." Or shit. Or sorry. Let's get you on the cot and so we can land and then we'll carry you off. He said, "Hell no." He said, "I jumped in this country and I can tell you one thing. I am not being carried off. I'm going to walk out." And I was like, "Yeah." So he would not. He would not. I was like, "Is that why you walked on this plane?" He said, "Absolutely." He's like, "I don't care." Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I was like, "Oh my God." But that's the mentality of the people that you're surrounded by and that you want to be a part of. And that's why, to be honest with you, if they asked me to go back to Afghanistan, Iraq tomorrow, I would pack up my bags and leave if I wasn't married.
Yeah.
But if I was single, that is where I want to be because those people, that attitude, that atmosphere is just so electric and energetic. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Wow, that's so powerful. Reading your profile a couple times in the book, kind of divided into three parts. One was the Iraq story going in dark. The
Mhm.
other was that powerful story of bringing not only the wounded, but the fallen back to Walter Reed. And the third is like the mindset, kind of like the mental side of things. I titled this one, I circled a line that you said, humans are not invincible. No matter how tough you are, no matter how strong, no matter how many times you did it, no matter how much of a badass you are, I think your psychologist said this to you, you're human and it's okay to have a problem, right? Can you speak to what serving our country at such a high level and dealing with so many stressful, maybe even traumatic situations, what that can do to even the strongest of people, to their mindset, their attitude, or either their mental health? Could you speak to that?
Sure. So, in order for me to tell those stories, I had never told those stories for over 20 years. And my wife read my story and she said, "I thought I was reading about a stranger." So it's tough. And when you keep that in, which I did for a very long time, you start to realize you're not invincible because we all think we are. Like, I went through all that. I'm like, oh, nothing can touch me. I seek out adrenaline things. That's what I do. But that's part of the healing process. You don't even realize you're trying to heal. But another part of that healing process is talking about it and facing, don't bury stuff. Don't do it. And I had that mentality. And it took my grandfather passing with his casket draped over the American flag and a three-gun salute for me to break down to realize I had a problem, that I needed help. So I sought care secretly. I did. I walked into the VA and I talked to a psychologist and I said, "You cannot put this on record. You won't find record of that anywhere. You will not find it." Because I was scared to death that I would lose my wings. I'm still in the military.
Mm.
So whether between you and me, whether all the stigma's gone, the stigma's gone, the stigma gone. No, it's not. For those that still wear wings, as I still currently do, I still currently serve, I still currently fly. We will hide stuff because at the end of the day, we don't want to lose something we fought so hard, that we put up with so much crap, that I'm telling you about these stories to keep them. We will do anything. But at the end of the day, we have to take a look in the mirror and we have to be like, is it worth those wings on our chest to lose our mind, to lose our family, to lose who we are, to lose the reason why we started to serve anyway? What are we doing? So Matt Eversmann, he's the one who contacted me first about that book. To be honest with you, I'm not a big reader.
Mm.
I didn't know who James Patterson was. James knows this. He was. But you know who I knew? You know who I knew? Matt Eversmann. I knew exactly who the man was. And normally it's the exact opposite, right?
Yeah.
I knew that man was the Ranger in Black Hawk Down that stayed those pilots. I knew exactly who he was. And I was starstruck just to talk to him because he's just amazing. He's the one who convinced me. He said, it took me a while to tell my story and I had to. And I never intended for it to turn into this. Holy cow. But it's great. It is what it is. Things happen. Things happen for a reason. The man up there has a plan. But you got to talk. You don't have to talk to me, but I've been there and I know. And I wore the same uniform. I felt the same feelings. I know what you're going through. And if you're willing to trust me, I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna do right by you.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, man, Joe, something let loose in me. And 4 hours later, after me and Matt and I, we it was the best thing I ever could have done. It was like a weight has lifted off my shoulders. And I'm like, oh my God. And I have people that reach out to me now, veterans, people that serve, just random people that'll text me,
Yeah.
or Facebook Messenger me, and I answer everybody back. I answer
Yeah.
everybody back. I always remember saying how that has helped them understanding where I have come from and why I held it in and why now it was now or never.
Mhm.
So I needed that help, and it's been almost therapy for me,
Mhm.
because even though I have my tattoo and I look at that every day, that helped me, but this is helping others. And that's you have to, if you don't fight for yourself, fight for the people that also wear the uniform.
Wow. I want to touch on the tattoo in a second. You mentioned about speaking up. It sounds like that sounds, but like as humans, when you talk about vulnerability or things you're afraid of or things that are bothering you or things that really affect you, you think it would make you weaker. But counterintuitively, it makes you stronger when you speak about it. And it actually like it helps others. Like when you go, you tell your story and they're like, oh my gosh, Jody felt this and she's such a much more of a badass than I am. Then people below you, or not below you, but people maybe that don't think they're as tough as you, they're not afraid to speak about it as well. Like you kind of help open the door, clear the way, and like you lead in another way, not only leading on the battlefield and in the air, but now you're leading of helping people with their mental health now because you made it safe to speak because you spoke, you know? It's like
Yeah.
you make it safe because wow, Jody can speak about this. Look what she's done. There's probably 1,000 other people that served that maybe didn't do as crazy as missions that you did, but like they're still going through stuff and they're like, wow, I can speak about it too, right?
For sure, for sure. And and there's people out there that have done. I mean, so I'm gonna tell you something. We have the most amazing military members. These people, if you could be, there's so many more people out there that's done much more than me. I'm just small, very, very small. But if this can help one person, then it means the world to me. And I need to contact Matt, actually. I need to call him. We do have to each other's numbers and we'll text every now and then. But I caught up enough courage and I went officially to see a psychologist at the VA. And I did. And I did it. And it was tough. But I walked in there and I'm talking just a couple weeks ago, brother. I finally did it. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. We need to start your treatment. And I have my first treatment in a couple weeks, but it took Matt reaching out to me. It took me telling my story. It took my wife saying, I am literally reading a story of a stranger. Why didn't you talk about this?
Mhm.
She gets it. She's my biggest fan and she gets it, my biggest supporter. But because of all this, I now have the freaking courage. And it sounds crazy. Well, you done all this stuff. It's different, man. It's different. I
Mhm.
have the courage to go and do what's right for me and make sure that I'm doing the mental health, make sure I'm getting it, make sure I'm going to my PTSD appointments and facing what I have buried for so long. But it started with Matt reaching out and working with James to literally go get real treatment.
Wow. The first
And
off,
they don't know that yet, but I do need I haven't I need to call him. I know he's busy, but
first off, thank you for sharing that. That is wow, it's so impressive. One of the things I read a story about post traumatic stress after battle, and they talked about the Vietnam era, which you have a family, your dad served in Vietnam and your grandfather served in World War II. And one author said one of the reasons why the World War II generation, it wasn't as much a factor as it was in Nam, where in Vietnam, people came over one at a time, couple, two at a time. And it was just like you were literally in the jungle. Then 48 hours later, you're walking around Chicago looking for a job or something, right? There was no, it was just like instantly you're forced back in with very little mental health therapy. Where with the World War II generation, they took ships back and it took a week, 2 weeks, whatever it took to cross the Atlantic. And it was a
mhm,
boat full of veterans where they all shared their story. And they kind of had like a week to 10-day counseling session as they went back and they kind of talked about it right off the bat for like a week straight. They think that kind of lowered the incidence of the post traumatic disorders because of they had like their own counseling sessions. But do you think that makes sense from your experience?
I agree. I think that decompression is the biggest thing that we need. But, again, it's the stigma that's out there that's associated with mental health and people seeking care because, see, a lot of things you don't want to be labeled. I am now a lieutenant colonel. I'm on a CCAT crew now, ironically. So I went from AE to CCAT. But I still have people that I serve with that you don't want them to look up on you and you don't want them to think that you're a failure because you too have PTSD. And no matter what they say about that, that stigma is, you know what it is when every military member's been in a battle that has problems. I'm telling you right now, a piece of it, they're like, ooh, you don't want to say anything because you don't want to be that person, right? You want to be strong. You want to do your job. You want to press on. You don't want to admit that there's a problem. And I think having those 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever to decompress was a big deal. My grandfather never talked too much about the World War II stuff. And so my dad, he actually volunteered for Vietnam, but he said, let's go, but he never got called up to go. But he had a lot of buddies that did, that had problems. And his uncle, which is my great uncle, Uncle Clyde, he did serve in Vietnam. He did. Yeah. He knows the struggles.
Mhm.
But I believe that with time and effort and having the camaraderie of military members, talking with military members, that's a big thing that helps me is like, I'm still in, so I still go talk to my buddies. I still talk to people that I've been deployed with. I mean, so we still house and share that connection where we can off gas things and we can talk about things. But some people don't have that avenue. Some people they just come home to their wife and kids that have no idea what they've just been through, or a wife comes home to her husband. But I'm just saying that you don't want to put that on them, right? Because they miss you and they love you and they want to see you and you want to go do things with your kids and your family. So you don't want to hold them to like listen to you about what you've just done, things that have happened. You don't want to burden them.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much what it is. But having that decompression time with your fellow airmen, soldiers, Marines, whatever, I think it's very beneficial.
Wow. No, thanks for sharing that. One quick story. My grandfather was an Army infantry in World War II and fought in the Battle of the Bulge and was overseas for 18 months. My mom actually was born when he was in a foxhole somewhere in France. And someone jumped in the foxhole, say, "Congratulations, you have a daughter. We just got word." He met my mom. My mom was like 6 months old when he met my mom. He died, he passed about 10 years back, and we found his discharge papers, right? And it has all about like when he entered, when he left, what his rank was. And they go like awards. He won 3 Bronze Stars, and no one has any idea what he did. Like he didn't say one, he didn't tell anybody, he didn't mention it. There was no one knows any story. There's not one half of a story of how he won one of the Bronze Stars. 3 Bronze Stars, 18 months in Army infantry, World War II. And there's not one story to tell because he didn't even tell his wife. His wife didn't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. And it is, and that's typical. I mean, it's just like, whatever happens stays over there and we don't bring it back because I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's almost like you don't really want the attention, like you made it home, you're safe, you're one piece, and some of your buddies did. And you feel guilty enough with that. But at the end of the day, you just don't want to it comes down to we feel, at least I do. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but on this, I will say for me, you don't want to burden your significant other with this type of stuff. Really, I mean, my wife's an ER physician.
Mhm.
She gets it.
Mhm.
But again, I just you don't want to do it. And I get it. I get that he never said a word and it doesn't shock me.
Yeah. You mentioned a few moments ago, you mentioned your tattoo kind of serves as a reminder. Can you share what your tattoo's about? And
Yes.
yeah,
For
you
sure.
mentioned.
So, well, it's gonna be upside down for you, but if you can see so I have it's upside down for you, but that's a helmet with an M16 buried in the ground, and it's an angel wrapped around it. That is for my friends that have perished over there. I have my dog tags, which is right if you probably can't see, but they're right
Mhm.
there. That's for me. And then I have a skull. It's probably talk closely, but I have a skull that represents war. And that skull, I mean, can you see
I can
it?
say absolutely.
Okay, so that skull represents war. There's a set of wings that's coming out of that skull. That's my C-130 wings. I did a lot of flying on C-130, C-17s. That's my military wings. I call it C-130s. That's where the majority of my flying goes to. I have a rose on there that's still well, a little faded, but it's yellow for people still overseas. Because trust me, we're still over there. A set of pearls that goes around the skull's neck because I'm a girl. And, wrapped and encased in the American flag. It goes all the way around. It falls into water and it goes I'm Cancer, so it's the Cancer sign that wraps into water. And then the last one is my helicopter wings that goes over my neck. It goes all the way down.
Wow.
And that represents that's my helicopter wing there. I only have one way because you always work as a team. There's always another person. You can't fly without your team.
Wow.
So that's why I only have one wing because I have to rely on someone else for that second wing to fly.
Wow. That is one of the coolest tattoos I've ever seen. How long is that all at once, or did you do that in parts? How does
So
it?
it took me about 6 months to do. I went to my very good friend, Jake Miller, a wonderful tattoo artist. And, he never charged me a dime, but obviously I paid him. But he wouldn't, I had to literally take money and shove it because he wouldn't take it because the reasoning behind why I wanted that tattoo and what it meant to me and how it really did heal my soul. It helped heal my soul. And it is a constant reminder, that it's okay to have problems. It's okay.
That's awesome. It's okay to have problems, no doubt, no doubt. How about this? How about for someone maybe in high school, you have a girl, a guy that's considering a career in military medicine, maybe particularly a flight nurse or being part of the flight crew. What advice would you give them based on your experiences?
I would say hands down, go for it and don't look back. Don't look back. Go for it. Give it your all. Go be a part of the best team in the world because we are. Not only are you going to be part of the best team in the world, you're going to be taking care of those people that's on the best team in the world. They're going to be relying on you for your help to get them back in the fight. So strap your boots up, grab yourself just a whole lot of honor and grab the flag and move forward. Because highly encourage this day and age, everyone take part of that. Whether it's guard, reserve, active duty, they're all amazing members. Run, go straight for it, and don't ever look back. No regrets.
Oh, that's great. Some countries have each person has to serve a year or two, maybe 2 years of service. I think that'd be an amazing thing. I think our country would be in way better shape if everyone had to spend a couple years of service before they went off in their career or something. The world would be a better place.
Definitely agree with you there.
A couple questions, just about a couple mindset questions and a couple
Sure.
fun questions just to end it, just so people get to know you a bit more as a person.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
first off, we spoke about so much your family's amazing career of service, 4 generations of service. Those amazing stories you told in the book with James and Matt. Jodi, if you could have everyone listening take just one lesson away from everything we discussed, what would that lesson be?
One thing I would say, always remain humble and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do anything. By those words, I mean remaining humble is we all will have problems. And we all, even though you think that your problem is the worst, there's people out there that have worse problems than you. Remain humble, do exactly what you need to do, but know there's other people that could be suffering worse than you and do your best to help them. And I think that would probably be the biggest takeaway from this.
Wow. Remain humble. Don't let people tell you what you can't do. Just do your best. Go get it, man. That's so good. So good. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
A couple fun questions to wrap up. First off, how much interaction did you have with James Patterson? Did you meet James or rely? How did Matt hear about your service of all the remarkable people that do things over there? How did he reach out to you?
So how Matt reached out to me was so they actually called him Jim, not James. But
Sure.
so back in the day when I was doing a mission out of Ramstein, Germany, back to Walter Reed is another flight. Nothing dramatic about this at all. However, there was a journalist there. Her name was Rebecca Abbott. And there were so when we do these flights, there's a lot going on. And it's tough to have additional crew or additional people, media on the plane because you have a job to do, but yet you want to be attentive, you want to do things. So it's a lot. Okay. It's a lot. Well, there was the mission and they came to me and I was what's called medical crew director. I was the MCD. I was in charge in that mission. And they're like, Jodi, can you take media? And I said, what? They're like, can you take media? And I'm like, what do I got to do? They're like, well, nothing. Just, just watch over them and do. I was like, you know what? Let's go. And they said they've been having a hard time, I guess, getting on the plane because I get it. I mean, you're busy. You don't, I understand. So whatever. But if you haven't figured out, I'm like, you know what? We're going to work it out. We're going to do what we got to do. Get them on here. They got a job to do. I got a job to do. We're going to work together. So Miss Rebecca filmed everything, what we did, how we did it. And then Rebecca wanted to come to my home to film me in my civilian job and do like I like to go mountain bike and do all these things. So she comes to my home. I clear it with PHIs, who I worked for at the time. We took her up in the helicopter, showed her. She did a big interview when I was in my black flight suit about military and the flights and da 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 da. She put that together in a package and she made a big movie out of it. And I shouldn't say movie. It was probably like a 45-minute film. And that film got done pretty well overseas. And you can catch it on YouTube. It's if you type in like Rebecca Abbott, Biden, I'll have to find it. Now, I have no idea. But apparently Jim seen this and him and Matt, that's when they started working together to figure out who they wanted to interview. Like, cause I'm just one of the lucky ones, very blessed. But because of that film, he's seen it. And he reached out to Matt and then Matt got a hold of me. I don't know how he ended up getting my number. I think he talked to a couple of my friends or something. And then that's when Matt got a hold of me. So that's how all that went down. But it was from that video that from Miss Rebecca Abbott. Mhm.
Wow, that's I will find that video on YouTube and I'm gonna put it in the show notes. So if anyone's looking for that, just go to the show notes, click that link, and you can see the Rebecca Abbott video of you in your flight suit. Let's go. That's awesome.
Did a great job, man. She came to the house with it. We took her up in the aircraft. I mean, it was great. Like she did a fantastic job. She really did.
So great. Jody, two fun questions. Total non sequiturs is what we're speaking of. Just two fun questions. I wrap the interviews up. I ask this to all the guests.
Sure.
So here's one. All right. So Jody, if you could spend a day with anyone, famous, not famous, alive or dead, and you could spend the day with them, who would you spend the day with?
My mom and dad.
Your mom and dad.
Yes, sir. Not
Awesome.
even a question.
Wow. What would you do with them? How would you
You know
spend the day?
what I would do with them? I get up in the morning and have coffee and chat and pet the dogs.
Yeah.
I watch a West Virginia game with my dad
Yeah.
and have a beer. Maybe one too many. Probably one too many. Yeah. Mom and dad, they're my heroes, man. And I'm lucky, very blessed, and humbled that they're still alive. And one of the reasons I'm getting my butt back home to West
Yeah,
Virginia.
that's so cool. Good luck with that house, building that house. It's great to take amazing trips and meet famous people and whatever, but you said you want to hang out with your mom and dad, have some good coffee and pet the dog. That's like the best, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
stuff like that is just the best.
yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Here, last question. I asked this to all the guests. Jodi Pritchard, if, I'm sorry. Last question.
Sure.
Jodi Pritchard, if you had to get a quote or a saying tattooed on your body, what would that quote or motto say?
Give me a minute. Honestly, never stop believing in yourself because yourself, whew, man, it can take a lot.
Wow.
That's true. I would definitely get that. Not even a question.
Wow. Never stop believing in yourself. I think you just gave me the title of this podcast episode. It's so good. I think never stop believing in yourself is about as good as a spot as any to wrap this up. Jodi Pritchard, or should I say Lieutenant Colonel Jodi Pritchard, I would like to thank you, one, for joining us, two, for your service, for sharing your amazing story. People like you are the reason why this country is as great as it is. If you don't mind, I'd like to end our episode with the last couple sentences that James and Matt wrote in the book, Walk in My Combat Boots, last part of your section. And I quote, and the remarkable thing, even though I still feel the hurt as I say the words, it feels good to be able to talk about it. I have a full sleeve tattoo dedicated to the patients I've lost over the years. It's a reminder of what I've seen overseas, what I went through over there. It's also a reminder for me to remember that it's okay to feel the way I do. I wouldn't trade my life for anything in the world. I love wearing the uniform.
Well, I sure do.
The guest is Lieutenant Colonel Jodi Pritchard. The book is Walk in My Combat Boots, #1 New York Times bestseller. James Patterson, Matt Eversmann, Army Ranger. Jodi, it's been such an honor to speak with you. Thank you for joining us and wish you continued success in all that you do.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. It was an honor. It was wonderful to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Right back at you, Jodi. What's your next move in the service now?
I don't really, I mean, I'm just kind of going with the flow right now. I would love to take the command spot, but I kind of really love what I do. I'm in charge of the CCAT group and I really, really like it. And I'm kind of found my niche
Mhm.
and I don't need any, I mean, I could go to a full bird colonel if I take a command spot, but I am 45 years old and I'm telling you, I don't think I need all that, you know, I'm straight. I think I'm going to do my thing, do my CCAT thing and press
Yeah.
on.
It's so funny. I'm in the business world and I turned 50. And instead of gathering at 50, like I want to curate. I want to curate.
Right?
I want to pare down instead of, I just want to get really good at a few things instead of being all over the place and crazy busy. You know,
Oh, I know, I'm with you. My wife had the right idea. Oh, we need to start our own business on functional medicine. I'm like, oh, okay. So I start down. I'm like, this was stupid. I mean, it's good, but it's just like, oh my God, I thought we were supposed to slow down.
that's awesome. But Jodi, thank you.
Yes,
You're
sir.
you're awesome, and I appreciate you. And I wish you and your wife nothing but success. I appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Well, you got my cell phone number too, so reach
Yeah,
out anytime.
I will do likewise. Thank you, Jodi.
All right. Yeah,
See you.
absolutely. Have a great day. Thank
See you.
you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Bye.
you.